Hi, wee Bob here, and in this video we're going to talk about your art style. How do you come up with your art style? What inspires you to draw? What makes you have that feeling of awe or adventure, or what really triggers you to draw? Is it just the love of art? Is it just pretty pictures, or is it something else? So for me, I'm going to talk about my art and what I really love, and it's something I've been struggling with recently, just trying to find what direction I want to go with on YouTube, and I think I found it, so we'll see how that goes. I did start talking about Doug the Pug, which was a picture book that I published, and that was a children's picture book, but I started going down the picture book route a few videos back, and then I thought that's not really where my passion lies. I've tried to go down the tutorial route. I think that's something I do enjoy doing, but it does cause the actual time to draw to be reduced because you're too busy trying to come up with how do I show a particular method, and you don't actually draw. So most of the time when I'm doing those tutorials, I've spent maybe an hour on the drawing, whereas when I first started YouTube I was spending close to 10-15 hours on a drawing at a time, and then adding it in as speed art as I'll put some in the background. So I've been away doing the West Highland Way. I've put a post in my community post, so if you don't check out the community posts, just check them out if you want to see some updates, maybe some life updates. But yeah, my style really started with a game magazine, or game magazines, called Zap and Crash. Now, I was an 80s kid, and I loved computers. I still love computers. I love gaming. I had a gaming channel. I've taken it offline just now. I might bring it back up at some point. But how do you come up with your style? What is your style, and where did my style come from? So yeah, how do you come up with your style, and what inspires you to draw? And for me, I'm going to show you some examples of people who have inspired me. I've done a few of their drawings and maybe put my own spin on it. I'll put some of them in the background. You'll have seen them before, but it is ultimately something about an image being able to tell a story, or an image being able to portray an adventure, or a series of images that portray different emotions. And sometimes for me it is just what would I like to draw. I've been doing this drawing, which I'm going to put in the background. It's a wee bit odd, but it does kind of capture what I like drawing. I like to do something a bit odd, and at the same time I like to try and entice you into coming up with a story in your own head as to what is going on in the image. So a big inspiration for me was the kind of sci-fi writers of the 70s, 80s, not the writers but the cover artists. And as a kid growing up, one of the things I loved to do was play games, like I said, and I had a ZX Spectrum. Now, not everybody will know what a ZX Spectrum is, but my first channel had a lot of that on it. And it was a computer, an 8-bit computer, similar to a Nintendo gaming system, but the Nintendo was 8-bit. I'll not bore you with the details because that's something for retro gaming. Go check out Meme Meister, Del Boy, Kev down the rabbit hole. He's got a great channel. I don't normally do these videos because normally I'm doing like a serious tutorial where I'm just like to the point, but I thought I'll just talk to camera for a wee bit because it's been a while since I did that and I miss it. So yeah, one of the guys that really inspired me was Oliver Frey, and I'll show you his book. I'll show you some of the images that he's created, and he was a guy who basically did all the cover art for lots of magazines, or he did lots of art for magazines and for comic books back in the 80s, 70s, 80s, obviously before that as well, but in my era it was the 80s, and I just loved his ability to show an adventure, a game, an action, something that looks really cool. Because back in the day when you used to play games, you didn't have the graphics that you've got these days. It wasn't Grand Theft Auto 5 where you can hear the guy's footsteps, you can sneak, you can jump over any walls you want, you can go in the water. Back in the 80s, when you played a game, you had to put a lot of your imagination into it, and when you were picking a game to buy at the shops, you would often just look at the cover art. you'd maybe flick over to try and see the graphics. Sometimes they showed you graphics, sometimes they didn't, just because the graphics weren't that great that they had to hide them behind some awesome artwork. So between Crash magazine, Zappa magazine, and Garfield, I used to love reading Garfield. Before you had phones, mobile phones, this is really showing my age, but before you had mobile phones, for me, I used to go and sit in holiday, and when you were on holiday you didn't have a phone to go on. You maybe had a little handheld computer that was very basic, but you would get very bored of it very quickly. And I used to sit in the caravan if it was maybe raining outside. I loved the sound of the caravan with rain on the roof, and it would be me sitting in my sleeping bag reading Garfield books and just having a good laugh about the stories of Garfield at the time. And I used to come back and I used to go to school, and I used to really enjoy coming up with cartoons, and I come up with one wee guy who was called Tipex Man, and I used to use Tipex, the white out, whatever you want to call it, eraser for erasing pen marks. Actually paint, and I used like a whole tub of Tipex to make this comic book. And I don't think the teacher was overly happy with me, but I made this guy called Tipex Man. Obviously his superpower was to erase certain things, like make a door in the wall because he could erase the wall. That was the idea behind Tipex Man. So just that's where my inspiration comes from. Thank you to everybody who has been subscribing to my channel recently. I've been getting great views, great comments. Thank you very much for watching. Cheers, and Wee Bob is out. Bye.